Hi everyone, happy Monday. Welcome to the planner page for this week. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is from Magical Jungle. It's one of my favourite pictures, and we have the gorgeous elephant, that's why it's my favourite, inside the glass bottle. Now I thought that it might be fun to have a go with some watercolour pencils on this page. What I've done to protect the page before we start is I've got a laminate sheet here with some paper. I've put the paper on top of it so that it doesn't catch the light and shine and be really annoying in the camera. Just so the water, when I use my water brush later, it doesn't go through to the page behind. Although this is my planner and I don't worry too much about the back, it might go right through to, you know, like last week's. So I thought it would be best to just be a little bit cautious with that. Now let's get started. I'm using my Castle Arts watercolours. I'm not massively experienced with watercolour. I'm just going to have a bit of a play and see what happens really. So I'm actually going to start with the cork on the top of the bottle. So let's come in a little bit closer. It's being really slow. Right, let's bring the book down. So let's start with the cork. I'm going to start with quite a dark colour, although it's called Walnut Brown Light. I think it's fairly dark, and I want it darker on the edge here and then lighter towards the middle, and so I will lighten my touch a little bit. And you could do this with any brown pencil. You don't have to use a watercolour one if you don't have one. Now I can do the same here, but before I sort of finish at this side, this cork I think would show through this rim. So I'm going to just draw a little bit of a line there and put some of the colour showing through there. Now ideally I want this bit to be a little bit fainter because we're looking through the glass, but I shall fiddle with that later. I'm not too worried at this point, but by the time, if I make it a lot darker here, you can see that that's a bit lighter. That's what I want, so it looks a bit sort of blurred and misty. And then we're going to go to this side and do the same thing. So a nice hard layer, and then less as we go in towards the middle. And then again, just draw the line. It doesn't need to be massively accurate, because if you think about how glass can distort things, so if your line is a bit wobbly or not quite lined up, like that one actually isn't, it doesn't matter. Right, I'm going to fade that in a little more, just using the light edge of the pencil. It's a very light, just so I can blend it into my next colour. The top I'm going to do a little bit of too. I think we'll just do the edges like that. Now cork doesn't shine, it's very, very matte, but if we can do it a little bit lighter in the central area, it will look a bit like it's shaped a little. I'm going to use the burnt umber now. I'm going to go over the bits that I've done and then just take that colour in a bit to the middle like that, so it's paler in the middle. I think this burnt umber is actually darker than the, it looks lighter, so you look at the ends, this is the burnt umber, it looks lighter, but when I put it down it feels like it's darker somehow. But I'm just going to apply it lightly and bring it right to the middle in a very light layer. And the same here, so sort of put a bit more here. It's just a different shade of brown really, it's a bit less red. And then bring it in. You don't have to worry about being scruffy too much with your watercolour, because you can be adding water and smoothing it out, but you do have to be slightly aware of what you're doing, because it's not going to perform miracles, as it were, you know. So I'm just going to tidy it up a bit like that. Now I have not tried watercolour pencils on this paper, so I've got no idea what's going to happen when I add the water, so it'll be fun. Fun for us all, fun and games. Right, but I really want a slightly lighter colour just to finish off. Is there a Davies grey? Yeah. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go for this. This is the yellow ochre. I think I'll put a bit of this in the middle. I think that will just brighten it a little bit. I'm leaning on my other pencils, making a noise. There we go. Now, there are lots of techniques for watercolour, and I haven't got any scrap paper. Bear with me. I'm back now. What I like to do is just wipe my brush on a little bit of scrap paper. I've just got a wodge of printer paper where people have made mistakes. Just wipe the brush on the paper to sort of make sure it's not too wet. I'm just trying to push some water through. There we go, it's dripped onto the paper. Sorry, I probably should have done that on camera, and I've wiped it off a little bit. And now I'm going to go. Now some people use a tissue paper, my husband does, whereas other people use, I've just used some rough paper, you know, old printer paper, as I said. So it's completely up to you what you try. Now, if you're using a regular pencil, you could just use a blender to get a sort of slightly smoother effect. But I think I'm going to do this bottom bit separately. But what's quite nice is it smooths it really nicely. So you only have to do one layer and you've got a nice smooth finish. So that's good. I'm going to rub the water pen on the paper to clean off. Now, this is a Caran Dache pen. I just like it because it's not a brush. It's like a fibre tip. I can't do brushes. I just don't know what to do with them. Right, so I'm quite happy with how that looks. This bit is just slightly more faded. That end might be a bit too dark really, so I'm going to actually get some water and just dilute it a bit, rub it off. Can you see that? It's just paler. Oh. Now for me, cork is not normally that smooth. It's normally got a texture. We can add a texture after, once it's dry. I'm going to move on and do some background work. So let's come out a bit. I'm going to leave the glass, by the way, till the end. So let's come out a bit more. There we go. So background is a bit tricky here. We've got the jungle background, so we could just go with the green and just do lots of green. We could do the ground in a slightly different colour to the sky. I've done this before with the sunset. I think doing all one colour might be a bit easier rather than splitting ground and sky, but I think I'm just going to grab a green and get going really. So this is the darkest green I've got. This is the sap green, and I'm just going to start doing some work down here at the bottom and see what happens really. So I'm just going to put down some green. Now these little ones are quite small, and I've got to try and think about how I'm going to get around them with a water brush. But the joy with this pencil, with these pencils, and I think it's the case with most watercolour pencils, not Inktense, but other ones, is I can go over the top with the same pencil. Inktense work a little bit differently. I'm no expert, I've got no idea. All I know is that once you've wetted it and it's dried, you can't really rework it. I think you might be able to put layers of other pencil on top though. You just can't rework the colour that you put down. Because it's ink, it's not paint, so it doesn't work in the same way. What I'm actually doing is I'm doing a side to side action here, which I probably should be doing an up and down as with grass. But anyway, I'm just going to fill in the background. Now these little tufts and things, I think I might just do them in pencil and not activate them because they're so small. But I'll have to just see what I think once I've done a bit more really. So I'm sort of thinking, would the whole background be the same sort of colour really? But I've done this sort of grassy bit. Let's just fill in these little gaps. I think those are all the gaps. That bit under there, I'm going to do like it's the bottle rather than the ground. Let's do that bit. we could do a bit more because we don't. The elephant doesn't need to be sort of right down on the ground level. Could be higher. I think what I am going to do is do the whole background with this colour because we're looking through into a forest. There would be trees in the background, so I'm going to do all of this with this colour, and I'm going to stop the video. It's going to be really boring watching me just colour all green, and I'm going to turn my book round a bit and do it. And I'm actually going to do it this way because I think it would be more natural that trees and vines and stalks would go in this direction. Once we wet it, we might not see direction, but we did a bit here, so I don't really want it to be that way. So I'm going to colour it all that way. And so I'm going to turn my book that way and then come back to you. Right, I've done the background now, and I did it quite quickly and roughly, and I also went over it with the water and have left it to dry because I want to get on and show you my plans for the leaves. So I did activate it. I didn't do anything special. I just went all over it. Really simple. Now you can see that I've gone over loads of bits of leaf and bits of elephant tusk and everything, and flowers. I am not too worried about that, to be honest. I'm thinking we've got a bit of a jungle theme, leaves and might be overlapping, there's dappled sunlight maybe. I'm not really worried, but I am going to get on and colour the other leaves. Now I've got my olive green, which I think goes really nicely with the sap green, and I'm just going to start colouring. And you can see it's actually a little bit lighter than the sap green. It does look darker when it's going down now. Let me come in a little bit, you can't see. Let's go in a bit closer, there we go. But I'm not going in mega close. Once we activate it, I think it will become lighter like the sap green does. And it may sort of disappear a little bit. But my idea was to actually do all of the leaves very similarly. So all the small leaves, I'm just going to maybe put a bit more down at the bottom and less towards the tip of the leaf, like I do when I'm generally colouring. I'm not on these small ones, they're too small. I mean, they aren't too small. If I sharpen my pencil, I could do that, but once I splodge over it with water, it's not going to show. So I know if I make the tip a bit wetter, then it'll be a bit lighter than the base, but I'm just going to try a little bit with my pencil, layer it up a little bit more there than here. I know what some people do is they just put a bit there and they wet it and they spread it to the tip. That's another way you can do it, but I'm not really sure if that's going to work with this pencil. I might not be putting down enough. So I'm just colouring it as I normally would. I find it fun. Anyway, now we have these ones underneath. Thinking about those, I'm just going to keep going around these. Now you notice I'm using the same colour. My plan is that our elephant is the star of our show. He is the gorgeous, cutest little thing ever, and I want him to stand out and the leaves to be like a frame. So if I can make the leaves all quite similar, then he'll look different, if you get my drift. So that is my plan. So with these leaves here on the side, I'm just going to fade them a bit towards the tip. And what I'll do, really when I wet them, I want this bit to be wetter than that bit, or something like that. But I'm going to just see what happens really. As I said, I'm not very used to using these. I'm not an expert. If it doesn't come out right, I know that I can just colour on top. So that's good. I mean, this all looks a little bit messy. I could put another layer on, but I haven't. Now I have gone over the tusks a fair bit here. Look, it's quite green. So what I think I'm going to do with those is, rather than trying to use a white pencil and activate it and try and get it to go white, or use the water to try and take up the green, which you can if you can re-wet it and pick it back up off the page, I don't think that's going to be that effective, and to try and get in that teeny weeny space is hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a white acrylic pen, Posca, to go over the top. So hopefully they'll look all white. and stand out, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to leave those petals there. I'm going to leave those as petals rather than leaves. You could do them either way, but we've got a lot of foliage, so I think I'll just leave them as flowers, as petals. So I'm not going to continue to do all of this on camera. Basically, I'm going to colour all of the leaves in this pencil and fade them towards the tip. Then I'm going to activate them off camera and let them dry a little bit, like I did with the background, just so I can work the rest without smudging wet paint all over the place. So I hope you can, I had to erase a bit. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Now obviously I've gone over the edge of the elephant. I've got some more plans for our elephant, so you don't have to worry too much about going over the edge. Maybe with the flowers, but I might have a plan for those as well if they don't look as good as I'd hoped. So a bit darker here, lighter towards the tip, activate with water. If it looks too messy and scruffy like this, you can always recolour it or re-wet it and rework it. Obviously you have to be a bit careful because you don't want to saturate the paper so much that it crinkles. So the more you rework it, I'm assuming the more risk there is. But this is a single-sided page. It's probably going through. No, it's not even going through. So, you know, it might be okay. I'm still trying to decide with these big leaves whether to ignore the edge, and I think I've decided that yes, I'm going to. Just going to do them darker down here and lighter towards the tip, just like all the others. I'm just going to do all of the leaves in exactly the same way. So again, as I say, I'm going to go away, do that, activate it, leave it to dry. So just splodging the water on, really quite simple. If you're not using water, you don't need to do that stage. You can just colour it and leave it and wait, and you'll have a neater finish than me, I'm sure. But anyway, I'm going off and I'll be back. Hi, I am back and I have coloured all the leaves and activated them all and let them dry a little bit. Now where I'm going to now is down here at the bottom to these little stones or pebbles. Now what I thought I would do was use the same colours I did for the cork, so it sort of ties up. Maybe just one of the two colours. I think I might use the burnt umber. Just going to give it a sharpen. Now what I need to do is to get into quite a small section. So what I'm going to use a slightly different technique. Let's come in a bit closer so you can see. Now I have got a pot of water beside me, and I'm going to take the lid off very carefully, and I'm going to dip my pencil in the water and then paint with the pencil rather than activating it with the brush. Then I think I'll still get my painted look, oops, without having to try and accurately get my brush into this small space. And I can feel that I'm painting with it, that it's soft. So I've just got to a dry bit, so I'm going to re-dip. You can feel when you need to re-dip. I can know I've got a little bit there. Hang on. I just get it off on my scrap paper. So what I'm trying to do with these is make them a little darker at the bottom than the top. And that's a bit dry. It's quite hard to see when I've dipped it in the water. Feel when I've dipped it. There we go. That's very definitely wet. And just, oh, it's a bit too wet. Just working my way through all of them, making them a little bit lighter at the top if I can. I'm still sort of getting used to using these pencils. It's not mega easy, but we're getting there. But it doesn't exactly match the top. It looks a lot darker. It's because it's coming off the pencil really thick. But I think that's okay. It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Now I've got our little ladybird here, which I've unfortunately got green. But we're going to use the same technique for the ladybird, you'll see in a minute. But we'll just finish all these stones. So there we go. That one looks a bit pale. Let's just put a bit more on there. So that was the dark umber. Now for the little ladybird, I'm going to use the same colour as I'm going to use for the flowers. I want to keep a limited palette. So I'm going to have a look. Really need a red, don't we? So I'm going to grab a cadmium red, give it a sharpen. There we go. Give it a dip in the water. You can't see, but that's what I'm doing. And then we'll just paint onto him. Ooh, that's very bright, but that's okay. Like that. Now normally I would probably do the head a bit black, but I'm going to leave it red. Now I want to do my flowers as well with this same red. I'm going to start at the top here so I don't smudge it. And I want a bit less towards the base. Let's dry down. You can see how that it looks very painty, hopefully. This looks very pink actually. But there we go, that's okay. So as I feel it getting dry, I just re-dip it. And then sort of paint with it. And it means that you get a smoother finish. I remember being shown this method as a child by my friend who had watercolour pencils. And she said it ruined the tips of the pencils because the paint spread onto the wood, but I don't think it ruins them at all. They're fine. It's really pink, isn't it? Okay. I'm going to do the centres and the petals in the same way. I'm going to try and fade the petals a bit though. So a bit darker. Ooh, that's very wet, isn't it? It's just I need to practice this a bit more. I'm not going to really get a difference in colour because it's so wet. It's just like a big pink water bubble. See, that one's a bit less wet, but actually needs a bit of help. It's a little bit less messy for me than using the brush to activate because it's got a pointier nib, if that makes any sense. But you can see how very wet and shiny it is if I tip it to the light. I don't know if you can. Anyways, that is the cadmium red. So that is my red. That is nearly all of it apart from our outside of the bottle, which we're going to deal with now, and then the elephant. Now for the outside of the bottle, I'm going to use a grey pencil, cold grey. I've just got to see what we've got in this set. We've got a Payne's grey, that'll be good. Or we've got a Davis grey. No, Davis grey is not any good. We use the Payne's grey. Now I'm not going to use any water, because I don't think it's going to quite work with the effect that I want to get. But we'll see. So up here at the top, I want to put quite a bit of dark grey there, and then fade it up towards the edge of the bottle. And do the same over here. But I want to leave some white. And I think that would have been very hard if I tried to do that with water. I'm trying not to get my hands in the wet paint. Here I'm going to make the edge quite dark and then fade it along, but right up to the cork. Now these are, oh, the lead is breaking, isn't it? These are wet and dry pencils, so you can use them either way. I'm going to make that bit quite dark and then fade quite quickly. Make the, I'm going to have to sharpen. Can't persevere with that, can I? So I'm going to make the corner bit dark and leave a little bit of shine on the neck of the bottle. There we go. And then fade that there, so we've got a little bit of shine. I feel like I've just put my hand in the wet, but I haven't. I feel like I need to put the lid back on my water. And now I feel better. Right, I'm going to take this round and start to fade it. Can you see? I can't see the screen here. The sun is shining in my eyes. And I'm going to leave it with nothing round there. Same here. So go round in the grey. And leave it, oops, catching my arm on the pencil. So I'm going to go right down to the bottom now and put quite a hard layer all the way along, right up and in between those stones. And other side here. Try and make it look quite smooth because the rest obviously is paint. And then start to fade it as you come up here so we can leave a white bit just there. And the same on this side, so keeping it dark down here, lots of layers. And then slowly, oh sorry I stopped, I got really paranoid then that I'd forgotten to press the record button. That would have been a disaster. Anyway, sort of fade to there. This one I'm just going to put a little bit more down there. There we go. Now, our elephant. Right, my plan for the elephant is to not use pencils at all, but to make our elephant really stand out. Oops, I've just knocked something on the floor, never mind, with some pens. But I'm wondering whether, yeah, what I'm going to do is start with pencil. I think the pens aren't going to quite work on their own, so I'm going to use the Payne's Grey to colour our elephant in to start with. And actually I may decide not to activate this at all, thinking about it. So I'm trying to make that leg look a little bit darker because it is behind, and I'm going to try and make the edges of the elephant a bit dark. Now don't worry if you go over this. If you've got some metallic pens or glitter pens, that's what I'm going to use on the swirl. So just put my finger in the paint. So it doesn't matter if you go over it. Hang on. I just wipe it off on my scrap paper. There we go. Well done me. So a bit darker under the belly, I think, and lighter as we go up. Now, as I say, I'm not sure if I'm going to activate this or not. So darker here. Might look a little bit odd if I don't, but it might look really messy if I do. I'll decide in a minute. So I'm thinking sort of dark under here, then we'll sort of fade as we go up to the top of the body. So you've got a bit of green on there, as we have all over really. I think it might look, there'd be a bit of shadow underneath the ear. Like that. Take that bit down a little bit. There we go. Let's do the ear quite lightly and then have a think about it in a minute. I mean, these folds might create little lines like that. Just do a light layer over the face. I'm going to try and make the eye be white with the black middle. Now, bottom of our trunk. Just put my hand on the ladybird. Do let your paint dry before you put your hand in it. Right, I think I am going to try and activate that, because I think it looks odd. Let's come in a bit close so you can see. I think it's really obvious that it's pencil. Maybe we want it to look different because our elephant's supposed to stand out. Yeah, maybe I won't, maybe I will leave it. But the little round bits on the feet, like I'm going to do it in the ivory black. like the nails, I think, aren't they? I don't really know. It's not like the elephant has toes. There we go. So let's grab some. Now should we do metallic? Let's get our white and do our tusks first. This is a Posca pen, just a PC1MR, whoops, which is the finest nib. Now I don't want to go over the black lines because I haven't done that anywhere else. I want to go over the green paint and make the tusks look white. I'm just trying to get some paint out on my scrap paper. That's better because the ends can get slightly clogged or the paint can dry a bit. There we go. That stands out better. As I say, these swirly bits, I'm trying to decide metallic or glitter. I think we'll just go metallic. I'm going to use silver. So this is the Gellyroll metallic shiny set. And I've got this one, which is number 553. And I'm going to go over these swirly bits in it. Oh. If you don't have silver, you could use white, you could use black, dark grey, whatever you want really. I had the idea of actually doing this elephant in gold, not silver, because I thought it would go better with the colours that I put together for this page. But it's a little bit late now. I've done it in grey, but I think it works. So let's come out and have a look and you can judge. Oops, put the whole thing in shot. There we go. So you can judge. Now I feel that the green around the elephant is a little bit lighter, like I didn't put enough water on or something, but I think actually it makes it look a little bit glowy. So I'm okay with that. I mean, it's up to you if you want to change that a little bit. I mean, you might not have got the same effect anyway. If you did want to activate the grey, of course, that's completely up to you. If you've got a really steady hand and a very thin brush, then you could probably do it, but I just didn't feel confident that I could do that with my brush and my poor level of control. I noticed I've missed a little bit in there, so I'm sure that's not the only bit I've missed. But I'm just going to, it's a petal, so it needs to be red. There we go. That red is still really wet. Ugh. I've just rubbed it on my scrap piece of paper and look, it's gone. Nice. I think they need to dry out a little bit before I put them away. I would advise you to do that. Let them dry, or else they might go all splodgy splodgy in your tin, which is obviously a very technical term. But anyway, that's me. I had fun experimenting with doing that a little bit differently. You might think it's a little bit samey and boring. You don't have to do all your leaves the same colour. I just really wanted my elephant to jump out of the page, and that's what I feel I achieved. So I'm happy with the result that I got. I did say about doing a texture on the cork, but I'm actually really happy with how that cork looks. So I'm not going to risk fiddling with it. So I'm going to leave it. But I hope that was okay for you. I had good fun. And sometimes it's fun to play with something a bit different. I haven't used these pencils enough. I need to keep playing with them really. But there we go. That's today's video. So I hope that was okay. And have a really lovely Monday. And happy colouring.